All right, everyone. It is 1 o'clock. It is the best hour of your week. What does that mean? Oh, it is time for Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. Roseco in the house. Oh, it's been a minute. I've missed being here, but I am here. But man, let me tell you, if you have not been paying attention, Tom and Mark have been having very stimulating conversations. And we're going to go get right into it. I haven't been able to introduce Mark in a while. You know this gentleman, the complete, the educated, the ace, the crackerjack, the complete, the efficient, the employable, the qualified, the trained, the mastery, the consummate professional, Mark Boatwright Frost.
Hey, all.
How are you doing?
First I have a question for you. Were you doing Matthew McConaughey at the beginning of the show? All right.
all right. Hey, I'm in a good mood.
Yep.
You know,
and it just seems like a way to start it.
Yes. This is one of the hours of my week where I have some stimulating conversations where it allows me to get out of the echo chamber. And so I value this time for conversation. But we don't do this alone. Do you want to introduce Tom or do you want me to?
The illustrious Tom Martin of Black Green Distillery, educated in anthropology, a competitive fencer in his youth and still doing a little bit of that now, makes fabulous bourbons and always keeps me on my toes. Welcome, Tom Martin.
All right. Well, let's bring on the dexterous and the adroit Tom Martin. Tom, how you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
So is that coffee or bourbon?
It's just coffee.
Okay. I was going to say I'm jealous.
Yeah, no, unadulterated black coffee. I will occasionally Irish my coffee, but not on a work day. And I'm all over the place today. I came home to be part of this, and then I'm going back to a job site, and eventually I'll be at the distillery. I'm going to be all over the
traveling man.
Exhausted man.
I just wanted to update that the last 2 workshops we did have been everything I could possibly have wanted them to be.
Wow.
We have people engaged and in conversation. They are very different people coming together and asking questions and thinking through the paradigm shifts that need to happen. It is an amazing and very warming feeling to know that after all of the work and all of the workshops I've done, that it's finally coming together.
Good.
Gives me hope for the future.
I love
that. That is, well, it gives me hope for the future too. Because well, Mark, you and I have talked enough. You know, I take kind of a bleak outlook.
Yeah, and I could, but you know, I find some great things in the conversations. The trick for me is most of the people attending are female. And I want to know where the men are.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an interesting conversation. And of course, my brain immediately gets anthropological on it. I can't. Women tend to be the. I was just saying, women tend to be the features of the group, so they're the ones that are going to want to bring people together and push confront, I think. And then I can.
That sounds like a reasonable explanation.
Yeah, when I can think of lots and lots of examples where that's not true. You know, heck, my
Yep.
own house. I'm the more social one between my wife and I, but anthropologically speaking, you know, women were the ones that held community together. They're the ones that stayed, you know, in the villages or in the camps or whatever, and took care of home and the children and gathered, and the men were out hunting and, well, doing stupid things. In thousands and thousands of years, and not much has changed except the stupid things that we do.
So going right to that point, I want to start the topic of the day because you just opened the door for me. Anthropologically, we've been talking about the fact that, you know, we're essentially still primates. Tom's been talking a lot about that. And I want to talk about the one thing that takes us out of the primate mode and brings us together. And I want to talk about social contracts.
Oh, I've been thinking on that today. And I've been thinking anthropologically and prehistory and politically, because, man, there's just a razor edge right down the middle between politics and
I think politics are actually the antithesis, and this is my personal opinion. I'm not saying anything for Tom or Marwan or science or anything else, but my personal opinion is the way we have gone in politics is the antithesis to actually the health of the social contract.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. We've politicized the social contract, and there was not really any way to get around it. It was going to happen.
I kind of want to set a foundation for this. Did you know that your driver's license is a social contract?
Yes, it is.
When you sign and to get your driver's license and you sign the driver's license, you are agreeing to a social contract to obey the rules of the road.
Correct. And there is an anthropological origin to some of the rules of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you think? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, when we drive down the road, you know, we all agree that we're going to stay to one side for the flow of traffic, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
that goes way, way, way back to the days of when you used to fight to defend yourself with a sword. So if you go to very old places like London or Tokyo, everyone drives on the left side of the road,
mm-hmm.
so that you can pass traffic on your right, which is what most people use to fight with.
Mm-hmm.
Most people use their right hand. If you pass someone on their left, you can draw your sword and defend yourself against that threat coming at you, and you're closest to them.
So a note on that particular thing, as you know, I'm a student of history, and I've also a fencer, as are you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also left-handed. So one of the words that are applied to me when I fence is that I'm sinister, because the left hand is considered the sinister hand.
In old Latin, sinister is the word for left.
Yes. But it's not that anymore in our society. We think of something completely different when we say sinister. We think of somebody who is untruthful, somebody who is against our basic. So, Tom and I both get wrapped up in this picture of being untruthful and against other people and someone to be watched with regard just because we're left-handed. But just to say this, science says that people who are left-handed are in their right mind. So all I got to say is Tom and I are in our right mind.
I agree with that. Pardon me while my catching up with all the alerts that it missed while it was sitting turned off in its bag.
Like 1,000 updates.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry. And I'm kind of.
And we were sitting here on the laptop for half an hour.
And don't know how to turn the noise off.
Anyway, not without turning your volume off. So, social contracts are the way. For this conversation, I'm going to define social contracts are the agreements we make in order to live and work together in society.
That is fair.
Can we agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. So do you think, let's just start with the driver's license. Do you think that people understand as a whole that they have signed a social contract to agree to play by the same rules.
I think most of us understand that. I think some of it gets. It's like if you go back to the dawn of, say, democracy, when one of your social contracts. This is a little more advanced. Well, maybe not. It's the same idea. When the dawn of democracy, when one of your social contracts or one of your social obligations was to pick whom you think would be the best leader for your society. When we first got that privilege to be able to voice our opinion and speak on who we want to lead us, we paid close attention to that because it was a brand new right or a brand new privilege, however you want to label it. But as time has gone, we've become jaded to that privilege. No one takes the right to vote very seriously anymore, and I don't think people take the rules or the real meaning of the contract behind it. I don't think people take that seriously anymore. I think it's kind of jaded because they didn't have to do anything for it other than a few bucks on the counter and pass the test.
What
was that?
Not seriously anymore because they feel like the social contract has been broken and that we're not truly in a democracy.
Oh, back to the vote idea. Oh God, that's a whole different conversation. I was just using as an example, the first thing I could think of where we're truly like generations removed from the origin of that privilege. And so as generations go by, I think we become jaded to it.
So let's put a pin in that for right now and start building up from the driver's license conversation, because I actually do want to get back to that. But I want to kind of build a foundation for it.
Yeah, well, I think the same problem has occurred with our driver's license. I don't think we're really in the moment or really paying attention to what it means to have that social contract. Now, on the other side of that coin, I mean, that social contract is also beaten into our heads because now it's policed, and so there's law enforcement that helps push that everyone behaves in a manner that is socially safe.
That's the theory, but is that actually the practice these days?
Well, let me ask you this then, Mark.
Go ahead.
So, there was a time in my younger youth where I drove dirty. I didn't have a license or it was suspended, right? But I would adhere to the social contract that we all have, that I would probably drive more carefully because I did not have a license, right?
Right. You want to draw attention to that law enforcement.
Right. But I'm going to break the contract and get on the road without the license, but I'm going to adhere to the contract of the rules of the road, right? So once I have the license, there are times when I do break the social contract and I may speed or I may, bust a Yui somewhere. I shouldn't be saying all this on the live, but this happens from time to time.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, you're safe, buddy. I think we all do it.
So are we all breaking the contract, or is it understood? Like, lead us, Mark.
We are breaking the contract, and as you know, I lived over off of Beach Drive in Port Orchard, right behind Waterman Pier, and it's 25 miles an hour through there, and it's taking your life in your hands to cross the street.
Just to go sit at the dock.
Yes, 60% of the people do not drive 25 miles an hour through there. They think it's a race course.
Oh, I think it's more.
And they go blowing through there. Yeah, well, I'm being polite, and I didn't actually count them. But I talked to the sheriffs and I said, we can't enforce it. We don't have the manpower to go over here and enforce it. Which brings us to the question: is pre-COVID to now, there are far less law enforcement. I know that Bremerton is at minimum standards for law enforcement. I know the sheriffs are at minimum standards for law enforcement, and they can only do so much, which begs the question is law enforcement the reason that we follow the social contract for licenses, or are we following the social contract for licenses because we respect each other? And I know the answer to this, but I'm just floating it out there that it's law enforcement that makes us want to follow the social contract in any way, shape, or form, not our respect for each other.
I disagree with that.
Okay, go for it.
I think it's a gray area. I mean, no one wants to get a speeding ticket. No one wants a ticket for no tabs. No one wants any of that law enforcement interaction with, following the social contract. Even if law enforcement's not present, I mean, there's consequences if you decide that you're going to drive on the left side of the road instead of the right. And it's not just dire consequences for your neighbors and fellow citizens, it's for you too. So I think I think that's a gray area. I don't think we can say it's all law enforcement or it's all respect for the social contract.
And it's not. And I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, well, and then just some self-preservation.
Right. And driving for G2, I have to tell you that I've seen things that actually surprised me even after driving for decades.
Mm-hmm.
I was going by Bremerton High School one day to pick up somebody, and there's a stop sign before Bremerton High School, and there's a stop sign on the other side of Bremerton High School as you're going toward Naval Avenue. And at the stop sign at the other end, I usually turn onto High Street to go up to 15th. So I'm driving up and I'm pulling over slightly to the side, to the right, so that I can make the turn onto 15th. School is in session, so I'm doing just slightly less than 20 miles an hour through there, though I have never seen a police officer at Bremerton High School ever. I'm pulling just under 20 miles an hour. I come up to the curve, and a red Volkswagen Golf convertible blows through the stop sign, screeches around the turn with an older woman in it sucking down a beer as she goes flying past me right across the front of the high school doing 40 miles an hour.
Wow.
Fun.
And if I hadn't pulled over to the right to turn, she would have clipped my front end.
Aren't social contracts.
So this is just one of the things I see. Yeah, so these are just some of the things, and it's obvious that people don't use your cell phone while driving seriously, because I see it so many times a day I can't even count that high.
In my younger years, I drove truck for a while. I was on the road every morning by him and caught most of the fun commute hour and people in their crazy commute habits. And then when I was working as an electrician, drove all over the place. I'd do between 5 and 8 calls a day. So as a truck driver, not much to do except drink coffee, drive your truck, and listen to the radio. No big deal. As an electrician, I was a monster. I would have a hand, my cell phone in the appointment, driving with my knee going down the road. But, this is in 1999 or 2000, long before there were cell phone laws or any of that on the road. But I think that's kind of a lack of social contract, if you will, unless you've got so much practice at it that you can do it safely. I'm still here.
I can tell you most people don't. And they don't think that other people notice that they're swaying back and forth across, they're weaving in the lane, or they're stopping or slowing down and like not paying any attention to what's going on around you. And I'm looking at them going, it's not so much that it's a violation of the social contract, but it is a violation of the intent of the social contract, which is to keep us safe.
Right. And that, going back all the way around to the beginning of the conversation again, I think we've all become jaded to that.
Okay, so here's going to be my slight 30-second rant here. I go downtown at 6 a.m, and I go downtown at 4 p.m, which are coincide with the shipyard workers coming downtown.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say the majority, but a vast amount of them obey no speed laws, no stop sign laws, no social contract. Yeah. I've seen repeatedly people running stop signs uh, doing unsafe changes, almost running people over, not to mention the pedestrians walking across the street like, nothing matters but them. And if law enforcement were going to enforce something to actually draw revenue, I think that they should be enforcing downtown Bremerton between 6 in the morning and go again at 4 in the afternoon, because they could get a lot of revenue for that. But I notice that they are never there, ever.
Goes back to that problem of not enough manpower.
Or not enough willpower in this case, because it's been an ongoing problem for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say willpower.
Yeah.
Are those folks more likely to vote? Are they more likely to complain? Because we've got our camera lights are in the low income areas of Bremerton, but you don't see them in the on the island or in some other places, right? Like Port Orchard has roundabouts. They don't have camera lights to increase revenue.
Yeah, and the downtown, I think that there's a lack of will to enforce anything on the shipyard, because there's a view that the shipyard supports Bremerton. And I would challenge that thinking, because great many of the people who work at the shipyard don't live in Bremerton, don't shop in Bremerton. And if you've ever been in the traffic going down to Belfair or north, you will understand that that is true. So we think that there's greater value than there actually is. And I think that we keep a hands-off attitude, but that's my opinion only, just to be really clear here. But in the social contract sense, I think that the social contract isn't being enforced by police, and that it is my opinion that we as people don't think it's important for us to share with to enforce it ourselves with each other through our own consciences and our own education. And part of the fact is, let me finish this thought. Part of the fact is that when I was in high school in the 70s, we had an entire semester of driver education, and the social contract was implicitly discussed during that time. We had a semester of simulation, mechanical simulators, which were really hysterical by today's standards. We had time in the car. Yeah, so by the time I actually took my driver's test, I had already had 100 hours on the road driving in almost every condition.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a training. These days, they say, okay, pay $250, go to these guys with the student driver thing on the back, and go through and learn how to drive. What is that noise?
One of Heather's parrots.
Oh, okay.
It's a parrot. I can't shut it up.
It's okay. It just sounded like somebody's alternating.
Do you want a parrot?
No, thanks. Anyway, so the point is that we don't spend the time to teach social contracts in school anymore. To follow on with that, we also don't teach civics in school anymore. Kids have no idea what the Constitution is, the three branches of government are, their roles are, because we don't teach it. And haven't for a while.
Teach economics and government.
Yeah, we don't teach a lot of things that the kids need to
know.
Or
why do you think that is?
I think it's because we have a corporatized. Okay, well, first of all, let's go back to the history of school. It was actually pushed and partially funded initially by industrialists wanting to create a system to create workers.
Mm-hmm.
It was never designed to create thinkers. That was supposed to be the private schools that industrialists' children could afford to go to. So this is just another version of that, is that they want that corporations who run the schools now, instead of like teachers who run the schools, because if you ask who writes the test, it's corporations, not teachers. Who creates the curriculum? It's corporations, not teachers. It's just a very subtle shift in ways to keep people from actually learning anything.
Well,
that comes from John Taylor Gatto and a lot of research, but it is my opinion on my research.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, especially the past 15 or 20, I think we've kind of the hierarchy freak out when you use the word hierarchy nowadays, but the hierarchy of society breaks things up to the haves and the have-nots. And so suggest, since we're on the topic of social contracts, that there's more than one social contract in play. So we don't have an even playing field.
Yes.
Everybody.
Right. There are minor contracts between different groups, and the I would argue that the higher you get up in the social stratus, the more often the social contracts are broken.
I would say the social contracts are broken between the haves and the have-nots in the. But anytime you break a social contract between members of the cast that are equal, so the haves, you have two haves, and you break a contract there, it'll go to court. And if you between two have-nots, but if a have screws a have-not, now you switch that around, a have-not screws a have, it goes to court.
No, you go to jail.
Well, yeah, go to jail, go to court. I mean, court may or may not result in.
1 second, let me. My bad.
Oh, hey, I've had a bird going off in the background.
Sorry, I should have hit do not disturb on that phone first. But we'll enjoy Wipeout while I'm waiting for it to actually go into effect. So I would say that the social contract between the haves, the higher up the haves are, they are so entitled to think about themselves that they are actually looking for ways to violate the social contract without getting tagged and going to court.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Which doesn't make it a social contract. It makes it something to overcome.
Right. Well, let me say, where does that be of social contracts today? I mean, other than the fact we can agree there's
a laying a foundation for a further discussion.
Yeah,
we're laying a foundation for a further discussion. So let's, Marwan, go ahead. You were.
Well, what I was going to say was, is that really a violation of the social contract? Because I think how we have set up society right now, the haves do what they do, and for folks that are in the underclasses, we've kind of accepted that. And the lore is, well, if you just work hard enough and you're plucky, you too can become that, right? And so when they go to court, and whether or not they can afford these high-powered attorneys, we don't hold them to task, right? We had the guy that I think he killed a bunch of people or whatever he did, but he had affluenza because he was too rich to be, prosecuted, to be jailed, right? So then we uphold that through the jury of your peers, quote unquote. So are we actually upholding to the social contract as we've constructed it?
No, and we did not construct it.
As I would say, within the caste system that has come about, yes, we are, but it's not a set of fair contracts.
No, so I would argue that the only social contract that covers all of our country is the Constitution.
Broken too.
Well, yeah, I'm not arguing that it has or hasn't. That was not my statement. My statement was the only social contract that covers all of us in the United States is the Constitution. Can we agree on that?
We can. Yes. Okay. I mean, about, is it fairly used?
Oh, so, of course not. Of course not. It is not managed. It is not abused. For God's sakes, we haven't amended it in decades. Now they think that you can't amend it.
Yeah. And so when it comes to the idea of amending the Constitution, personally, I think we amend it before we change it. It was intended, employed fairly, and then after we we use it, then we make changes to it if we need to. But it's been abused.
All of it?
Say what?
So how do we even do that?
I don't know. I don't know how to fix what's broken. What's broken right now is so big, and it encompasses so many people, and there's such a huge power dynamic for the people in charge that I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's easy to point out the problems, but how to fix them, especially when they're that big, I have no idea.
We can go talk a little bit about the answers later. Marwan's got something. I think Marwan's biting his lip, not saying something. So go ahead, Marwan. What do you have thoughts on that?
Oh, it just, Tom was saying, we need to, adhere to the Constitution as it stands first. And I'm like, even the 13th Amendment, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or placed subject to their jurisdiction.
Oh, no. We leave the amendments in place. I'm not saying unamended. I don't know if that came through as a glitch or something. I didn't say that at all. Not unamended, just the Constitution.
Any new amendments?
Yeah, as it sits right now, I don't think we should change it. I don't think we should amend it until we with it in the. I
maybe
we call it.
Can I say this for you, Tom?
Yeah.
You don't think it should be amended until we actually all agree it's a social contract?
I think we all agree it's a social contract, but we're not using it in a manner that is fair to everybody.
So let me go back and say,
as soon as we. Oh, go ahead.
Let's go back to the thing that we don't teach civics anymore.
Right.
There are whole generations that don't even know what the Constitution is. So I don't think we can say that we all agree it's a social contract.
Well, that's a fair statement. Okay.
So I think the first thing we need to do is get people on board to understand what the Constitution is and stop talking about, okay, this is one of the things Marwan and I talked about earlier, and I'm going to bring up again here, is the whole group of people that think that we the people is not something that is important because, for God's sakes, the people who wrote the Constitution are slave owners. I said, well, time out here, folks. Before we talk about that, let's talk about the amendment to the Constitution. Because while they knew things were going to change, and they have an amendment process to change those things. And we have, along the way, amended the Constitution to better reflect the society that it oversees.
Yes.
On the other hand, we stopped doing that.
We did. I think.
And we're dumbing down the kids about it.
Yeah. Oh, we've been dumbing down the kids. God, we've been dumbing down the kids since I was in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, I took civics, I took government, but that's because those are things that interested me.
Civics and government were both, and economy were all required in my school. But I was in a experimental period in California education, and there were a lot of things that we did then that aren't being done now.
That explains so much.
Yeah, well, my education was similar, but I bounced around a lot because I grew up in a military family. So, I went to 2 high schools. Right. I went to three or 4 junior highs. I went to, I don't know how many elementary schools. So my education was hodgepodge from everywhere.
Which probably is how you think so clearly, because you weren't through one conditioning process.
Well, I didn't go to high school.
Yeah, so there we are. 3 people here who were somehow escaped the programming of the school system.
Maybe.
But there are a whole lot of people that didn't.
So I agree with your sentiment, Mark. How you stated it, right? We don't know what's in the Constitution. We've definitely gotten away from, just the pure basics of it. I would say it might be a very dangerous time to amend the Constitution, which is probably why both sides are so far apart right now. They won't let either side amend the Constitution, and maybe that's a good thing in this climate. We have to get back.
Funny thing that it doesn't require Congress to amend the Constitution. The people can amend it if they get 38 states or 2/3 of the states agreeing on an amendment throughout the state process. They can take it to Congress, and Congress has to adopt it.
Right.
They have to
Or
adopt.
Congress can start
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. If
it doesn't,
there's two ways to the Constitution done. 2/3 of Congress or 2/3 of the states can propose to Congress. The party receiving the proposal must act on it.
So under those levers, if enough states wanted to, could they succeed from the union? Because there's been a lot of talk over that over the last few years.
Well, I am not a constitutional expert, and I don't know what is in the Constitution that prevents secession. I know that there have been a lot of bills and laws put in place, but the Constitution supersedes all laws, which is why we have the Supreme Court, such as it is.
Right.
Such as it is.
As it is. And well, I mean, the Supreme Court has ebbed and flowed since its inception. And it's been the slowest to ebb and flow because of the lifetime appointment of the justices. So the politics around the executive and the legislative very, very quickly, but the court does not. The judicial branch does not. And I think the original intent was to on the straight and narrow with our social contracts. But of course, the branch has gotten as politicized as everything else, so that's broken too.
Yeah, and I am very troubled. I will say this, and this is the only thing I'm going to say about this. I am very troubled by the lack of ethical oversight with the Supreme Court.
Oh, see, I'm troubled by the lack of ethical oversight on all three branches of the government.
Well, yeah, but all of the other two branches have more ethical oversight by a lot than the Supreme Court apparently does. So that concerns me. But let's go back to social contracts for a moment. The Constitution, we've agreed the Constitution is the largest ethical or the largest social contract that we have. It oversees everything. Good question, Marwan. However, we've also agreed that people don't know what the Constitution is anymore, and that we are not educating people of the Constitution, which means it is essentially being ignored. And I will tell you from things that have been said that there are several people in Congress who also do not know what the Constitution is and how it acts, because they say things directly opposing the actual words of the Constitution.
So not surprising.
Yeah, so the political side is kind of out of control. And the way that we have the two-party system and our the Electoral College and all the other pieces of it are in place to make that so. And now it's about whether you're red or whether you're blue, whether you're Democrat or Republican, you're right or you're left.
Yeah, I need some clarity on that last statement.
Well, okay, how so?
So, on me, so I missed some of your words.
Okay.
You were saying
I got lots more.
Say what? You have lots more.
I have lots more.
Me too.
Words.
Okay. So you were saying that there was a system in place to do something. Then my connection glitched.
Oh, I was saying that the Electoral College, the political parties, the PCO model, all of this is in place to maintain the structure such as it is, which is breaking our Constitution and our representation.
We can agree on that. I think we need, in my personal opinion, we need a government overhaul. But what I have up here is ugly. I mean, it's beautiful in the end, but getting there is ugly.
Well, and I have a slightly different model, which is part of what the Kitsap Resiliency Project is about. It's about finding human commonalities, about
Yes.
creating social contracts locally and then reflecting them on a bigger scale until we get to a place where we can fix the one we've got.
Right, but we have to leave the government out of it because the government does nothing but break things.
Have you ever heard me say that we should go to the government for any of this?
Oh God, no. I mean, that's one of the huge reasons that I am so, enthralled and involved, and because I don't trust our government, either party. I don't trust our government to do what's in the best interests of we the people.
No, I don't either. And to fix it, we have to bring we the people together.
Yep.
And eventually we will deal with the government, but the people have to have agreements amongst themselves first to treat each other socially and equitably.
Yep. Respectfully. Let's just start.
Yeah, absolutely. Just start
common respect.
We
I agree with equitable is.
What was that? I'm sorry, my one neck broke up.
We can't agree with equitable is.
No, but if we sit down and are able to talk it through, we might come to an agreement of what equitable is amongst ourselves.
Equitable should be the easiest thing. That should be the easiest,
theoretically.
Theoretically. I mean, if Mark gets five widgets, then Marwan and I get 5 widgets. That's it. Everyone gets 5 widgets.
But what if I don't need 5 widgets? What if I only need 2 widgets?
Then you take your 5 widgets and you bank 3 of them, or you sell 3 of them, remodel 3 of them, or you reinvent 3 of them.
Or you help somebody who needs more widgets.
But now you're talking about equality, not equity, right?
Well, it's a little bit of both, isn't it?
Equity is you get what you need. So if I only need 3, you don't need to give me 5, right? Because you need 7 and Mark needs 5. So we still have 15 widgets. Everyone got what they needed. But if we give it
how our system and we can come to an agreement on that, but how our system currently works is Marwan needs 3, he gets 1. Tom needs 3, he gets 1, he gets 2. I need 3, but I want 40.
Right. But we're not even in agreement here on what equality versus equity is.
No, because we haven't had the conversation yet.
No, I know.
But that's what we have to. Yeah.
5, and I'm saying everyone should get what they need, right?
What Tom, right. But what Tom did is he floated his idea, and you're floating your idea, and now we start talking.
Okay, so Tom, what do you think based on my retort? Have I swayed you, or do you not agree?
The way I look at it, so the way I look at it, I'm impossible to offend. The way I look at it is if there's 15 widgets and we divide up 15 widgets 3 ways, we all get 5 widgets. The free market should allow you to do whatever it is you need to do with your surplus widgets.
How about a social contract? How about a social contract allowing you to do what you need to do? Let's say Marwan only needs 3, but some other people are really struggling, so he gives 2 of his 5 to them to help out. That's a social interaction as opposed to a free market interaction.
And we're primates, and primates are social creatures. So what you do with your piece of the pie is entirely up to you, and that should be part of that social contract, that freedom with your widgets, because maybe Marwan only needs 3 widgets, but he's got 5, but he needs 2 zigzags or glumps or pick a word, whatever, 2 candles, right? So he can trade some of his widgets for candles or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That opens up free market as long as everyone's got equality of opportunity, not necessarily equality of outcome, equality of opportunity. Because equality of outcome is everybody.
But you're talking about free market. So what ends up happening, right? I take my extra 2 widgets where Mark is short these widgets, and I say, hey, I'm going to give you these widgets at a premium, right? and you have to have these windows to survive. So you're going to pay the premium. So now I'm going to get those zigzags, way more zigzags than what they actually would be worth because, well, we went on, equality and not on equity.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the conversation needs to start long before this point. I think the conversation needs to start on, I've been having this thought lately, and I think this may help the conversation. As I drive by homes and I deliver people and I pick people up and I take them around, I think about homeless people I see walking down the streets, and I think about warm lights in houses, and I think about the fact that do they look in the house and wish that they were someplace where they could be warm on cold days or have food? And I think about it from their point of view about people. I mean, we are all struggling. We are not in the upper class. We all struggle to make ends meet and to make sure there's food on the table, to make sure the rents are paid, to make sure that we are moving forward into where we need to be. But there are people who have nothing. They don't have a place to sleep. They don't have a place to eat. They don't have food, reliable food. There's really nothing reliable about their lives. And if you think about it from that point of view, where's equity for them? And we've had this conversation lots, but I just want to set your mindset here. The conversation has to start with, how do we take care of ourselves at the very base human level? First, us, because as they say when you take a play of light, put the mask on yourself first before you put the mask on your kids, because if you aren't taken care of, you can't help anybody else.
Right.
But once we do that, let's figure out how to help other people until we can all come to agreement on what being human is and getting the needs of our humanity met. That's where I think the conversation needs to start. And I think we need to stop talking about political solutions. We need to stop, at least in these conversations, talk about political solutions, resource solutions, or anything else. I think we just need to talk as human beings and share our experiences so that we can see what the picture could be and how we might be able to come together to help others.
So I hear you. Help me to understand, how do we unpoliticize basic need?
Okay, so the only way it becomes political at all is if we think that politics is going to solve the problem. Is it?
No. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole thing there.
Okay, so the only time we need to have the conversation about politics is if we think politics is actually going to solve the problem.
Politics.
But how do we unpoliticize? Like, how do we talk about it to where it's not a political thing?
Well, you talk about it on a human level. You talk about, okay, this is like we just did. I think about these people walking down the street and being unhoused, not having warmth, not having a place to sleep, constantly having to move, and all of the mythologies that go along with it. I think about all of the struggles that they have, and I think about the fact that, yeah, I'm making rent. I have food on the table. I'm certainly not doing well off. There's probably a couple $3,000 I could spend to get up a little bit more even. But that's true of all of us here. That's true of all of us. But if we can talk about, so let's talk about.
What do you say if I say, okay, well, I've been homeless before, right? Mm-hmm. And what did I have to do?
As have I.
I had to work, multiple jobs, right, until I could save up enough, right? I had to take accountability for the part that I played in becoming homeless, right? And then, I had to use my resources, put my pride on the shelf and do what I had to do, and I had to go without. So for those folks that have that mindset, they're saying, hey, is that person out there looking at, oh, I would like to be warm and I'd like to be inside, maybe, hey, look, I worked hard. You need to work hard. I was homeless. I was in that situation and I had to maneuver myself out of it. So you need to do the same thing also.
So perspective shift. What if they became homeless through no real fault of their own?
But what does that mean?
How often does that happen? Because I want to go back to a word that Marwan used, and that's accountability.
So let's just talk about the mortgage debacle. Now, yes, they made a bad decision by refinancing their home or making a bad mortgage decision. And when the mortgage situation crashed, a lot of people lost their homes.
Yep.
And
so let me give you a scenario. I'm gonna use myself an example, right? I'm paying my mortgage. I'm a married man, right? I get divorced, and through the divorce, we had to separate everything. Wells Fargo made me sell my home because I didn't make 3 times the mortgage for 2 years. My mortgage was $2,200, so they wanted me to make $6,600 a month. Right? I made it for a year, I think almost a year and a half. So because I was 6 months or 5 months short, I was forced into selling my home. Was that a fault of my own? Well, maybe because I had a failed marriage, maybe it was. Like, so, how do you judge that? Who determines whether it was your fault of your own or not, or a circumstance?
Right. I mean, there in our society. So let me go back to my overlook in the whole thing. Our social contract is broken. There are a lot of things that are happening that we have no control over. And a lot of people who are homeless got caught up in that mess because they didn't have the education, the understanding, the social connections to overcome the constant barrage of BS that we get hit with. Mortgage, the stock market manipulation, the mortgage crisis, the loss of jobs in the United States, the offshoring of manufacturing, offshoring of service jobs. There are fewer and fewer jobs in the United States and more people trying to find jobs. And now, we can talk about all of the mythology around it, but the point is that you come back to the human. These people are out there trying to find a way to be, and they have no tools to do it. Now, there are several that are using whatever tools are available, and we see that all the time. I see it all the time. I drive people that are working really hard to overcome all kinds of things. And one of the things that I'm finding out more and more with our assumption about drug use and mental health issues, of which there are, but a lot of these people fell under the opioid overprescription of the medical system and became addicted to opioids. I mean, that's something that they were trusting their doctor to prescribe properly, and they didn't. So this is just one of the dominoes that fall in our lives, and these dominoes are going to continue to fall. And let's just go to the point where I started with the resilient ecosystems. When a disaster happens and a crisis, the funny thing I find is that the homeless people are going to be better prepared to deal with things than we are.
Yes, the lower you are in that have and have not scale, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, because you will have lost everything and you have to adjust to that.
Yeah.
So the thought is we have to look at things on a human scope, not on a have and have not scope, in order to come together and to find commonality. And we need to start with ourselves and learn how to do, as you said earlier, Tom, respect each other.
I would make an argument about coming together on a human level and what that actually means, because we as people we're primates, and primates are, just by nature of their existence, hierarchical creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and yet we're able to come up with social contracts to make it more equitable.
Well, there's social contracts in the chimpanzee world too.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, that goes back to being a primate and being to exist solely like that. We need to not necessarily come together as humans, because that's part of the problem. I think we need to rise above that and come together and try to find from being so split kind of way. But again, we've talked about it. The Pareto distribution and the distribution of things in the universe and stuff. Well, that happens with people. That happens with the distribution of wealth. Whether we like it or not, there's nothing we can do about it. It's just the distribution of wealth on
and this is where you and I start disagreeing. I think there's a lot we can do about it.
Well, there's a lot we tried to do about it.
And things have been done in the past. So it's called revolution, where somebody takes the wealth away from the people that have it. But we keep going back to the system, which is what your argument is. We keep cycling. Well, I think that what you're saying is we need to intentionally evolve.
We need to try to, yes. You talk about revolution. you can actually predict a revolution within a structure mathematically. There's math that plugs into that, and you can guess with pretty good accuracy, or prove with pretty good accuracy, historically speaking, looking at revolution, consistency on ratios of food cost, of finding shelter and heat and all the things that you need. As soon as your ratio of infants on all those basic things comes, people will revolt. Period. It doesn't matter.
So
it doesn't matter your leanings or anything.
Let me float this question.
Are we imminent?
Yes, no, actually we are. We are very close.
We've probably got about 10% more before you start seeing ugly things.
Oh, but that 10% could happen really fast with food shortages.
Oh God, that 10% could happen in 6 months.
Yeah. So let me ask this. Do we have, in your opinion, Marwan, in your opinion, Tom, do we have time to go through another revolutionary cycle to get us back to where we are?
I don't think we have time, but I don't think we're going to be given a choice. I think we're on the precipice of what do they call it? They have a term for it when a lot of bad things happen all at once. They just coined the phrase like last year. So another pandemic, World War III. I think
dominoes falling in crisis.
Yeah, but there's
it's cascading events. Yeah.
Yes. I think unfortunately we're closer to that than we are to actually doing a revolution or an revolution, if you will. Is that your term?
What I'm looking for is intentional evolution, choosing to do it a different way.
Unfortunately, I think we as people, and this isn't even just in the United States. I think this is going to be kind of global, because globally speaking, we're all not too far off from each other right now. But I think, unfortunately, there will be a revolt before there will be intentional evolution. It's a race between those two ideas. One of them we have control over. We can choose to evolve as a society, but we have to get we have to get everyone to come together and actually do it. But that is a race against the mathematics of a revolt, and I think math's going to win on this one.
Actually, I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think that we continue the process of the intentional evolution throughout whatever else is going on, because it's going to take time to do this, and it's generational work. So we need to continue to push for that evolution.
So, going back to the idea of social contracts and the Constitution. The Constitution's a social contract that we came up with after a revolution. Honestly, unfortunately, I think the fastest way contract that is hopefully going to address a lot of this, a lot of what we're talking about right now. I unfortunately, I think it's going to happen the ugly way before we're able to figure out how to do it the peaceful way.
That's right. All I have to say is, mathematically speaking and statistically speaking, it never has. So things don't get better. Things don't get better after a revolution. They just cycle through, and we go right back to the same starting point.
No, well, things get better for a while, but in that short little window, that short little while, we have to be aware of what the problem was.
Which is where intentional evolution happens. If we can get a core there, that's where that goes into place. Which is why I think that they're not mutually exclusive. I think that you have to have a core of people working toward an evolutionary process.
We did,
even if revolution happens.
We did. We had that. Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton, George Washington. We had that,
and it's still valid. What we may need to do is amend it. The revolution may be the amendment that we need.
I believe that that amendment could happen, but I do believe it's going to end up coming through revolution. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be ugly, pretty.
Well, it's already ugly,
Yeah,
and
I think the
it's
machine's
it's
on
more
our
ugly for some of us than others. Yeah.
No, I mean
Mhm.
like Warzone. I don't see a way around.
Well, and we're already on the precipice of that now.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
people get shot going to somebody's house to pick up their siblings and going to the wrong house and they get shot, we're already in a place where Warzone is on the forefront. We have been fear mongered to this point.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I don't think we're going to fix it before it gets. I mean, people right now talk about how ugly it is when you can't safely make a mistake on the wrong door. But I unfortunately we're
Not
so
even
divided.
police can do that apparently.
Right. I mean, I think we're so divided though between the haves and the have-nots that the slaughter a whole bunch of haves before we find a way out of this. There's a lot of people out there right now.
Yep. So all I can do is keep trying to teach people how to change their perspective and how to embrace intentional evolution and get enough of them so that we get a core group of people here that may move things forward in a more positive way.
You know what's sad is, and I agree with Tom. I think we're the richest history or the richest nation in the history of mankind, and we can't figure it out. Right? There's enough for those at the upper crust to have all that they want, and not have the lower classes to be unhoused and hungry and unhealthy and all these other things. And so it is going to take something.
So what if the revolution looks like this instead of like a whole bunch of people with guns shooting at each other, which I think is still a ways off? What if the financial sector just collapses?
Then I
think that's way more likely.
Then we're all going to be shooting each other because we're going to be fighting over the resource with money, because money doesn't mean anything.
Right. Yeah, but if people are doing community gardens, they're helping each other, they're covering each other. Don't you have little enclaves of places that have sanity? Isn't that in every dystopian movie you've seen? Isn't it the people coming together and having each other's backs the way that people get out of it?
But how?
It's a beautiful idea, and I think there might be pockets of that because it's in human nature to be social, but it's not human nature to be million social. That the human brain doesn't comprehend that. We're good with biologically speaking, we're good with groups of 50 and a small.
My brain wraps around a big tribe. My brain wraps around a big tribe pretty easily.
Right, but so let's say money goes away tomorrow, food stops being delivered, right? Things rot on the shelves. Well, the enclaves that have already been growing their food, you're doing just well and good. But those of us that don't have it, we're coming for your food because that's the only food that's there. And so now you've got to protect yourself, and you can't.
So we need to get them to grow more so they can share.
Don't know if we have enough time for that.
If we get food for all going in Kitsap County, that solves that problem now, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
Until
you make Kitsap County a place to come and take. Because the
thing that makes it a problem for Kitsap people makes it a benefit for Kitsap people in that case. If something major happens, getting to and from Kitsap County is a little bit problematical. We're a peninsula.
But, human beings.
So our weaknesses are our strengths.
Have been traveling a long time. Yeah, people have been traveling by water for a long time, though.
But it's limiting in the amount of people that can come over here and raid us. But we're going into dystopian future. The point is, if we are growing our own food here, and we're generating our own power here, then we have a more more resources to be equitable with in any disaster at all. We are therefore resilient.
I love the big picture. I don't think there's enough. If things were to collapse in a week, we're all fighting.
Yeah.
But
if we have 5 years, which we may, if we have 5 years, we might be able to pull it off because it's growing.
That's it is, but like you've said, it's generational work, and 5 years does not a generation make.
Well, no, but we can make a lot of improvements in 5 years here.
God, I hope so.
So I'm more inclined to have Tom's viewpoint, of course, on this, but I'm also like to live in the solution, right? I'm now a solutionary.
Just because I think it's going to happen doesn't mean I don't think we should try to prevent it.
Well, and that's what I'm getting to. So what I believe is we should be doing the work that we're doing right now, right? And we really need to be dedicated and double down on doing this work so that we have some infrastructure on the other side, the aftermath. So whether or not the three of us make it to the other side, whoever is there, those pockets can carry on and go forth with a modified social contract so that we can go forward in a more healthy way.
And since we're 6 minutes over, I just want to go back to this. There's no guarantee that the worst is going to happen. There's no guarantee that the best is going to happen. So doing the work is doing the work. And the more work we do, the less the bad part is going to be likely to happen.
Hopefully.
And we're all scared of it. I mean, God knows we've been pumped fear 24/7 for our entire lives. And God knows I have seen every dystopian movie that is out up until probably to the 90s, and then I stopped watching them. But, you know, as sexy as Mel Gibson's hairstyle is in Thunderdome, I have no desire to live in Thunderdome.
I don't think there's a lot of accuracy in that particular case. You know, I think end of the world, however that plays out, that big social revolution, let's just call it that. I don't think revolution lasts that long. I don't think revolution causes I don't think we, technological advance. It'd be a short little while to get it all sorted out. But I think there's going to be a lot of ugly in that short little while. There's going to be a lot of people hurt and a lot of things taken.
Let's make an agreement, a social agreement between the three of us. Let's all work to make Kitsap County one of the enclaves to make it better.
I think we're moving in the right direction. I mean, you've put in a lot of groundwork to get it started, Mark.
So let's focus on making it happen. Talk to people, get them engaged.
Yeah. Get them to be neighbors.
Yeah, that's what we're working on.
It really should start as simple as that. I mean, the solution should be very, very, very simple.
As a matter of fact, Tom and I talked about this last week, Marwan. I don't know if you heard it or not. That he and I are going to choose one of the night market nights at the Town and Country Mall, where we can go and barbecue. I want to do street tacos for people and talk to them about getting together with their neighborhood. So just basically go to the mall when people are walking through and talking to people about, here, have a street taco. Let's talk to you about doing a community garden.
Well, I will bring it to a close because we're 9 minutes over. Yep. I have to say, as riveting as this conversation was, this had to be the most disruptive episode ever. We had Paris. I don't know. It's like, was that a vacuum, a plane?
Yeah, I've got a guy with a lawnmower going by mowing our lawn now, and I'm just like, can you go somewhere else?
Oh man, it's been a show today. We've gotten all kinds of random noises, so it's just hilarious. Yep. But a really good conversation. How about we give Tom the final word today?
All right.
Oh God. I honestly, I think the short answer right now, the final word on that would be get out and meet your neighbors. Fight the urge to look for the bad things, because that is also human nature. It's a survival instinct to look for the absolute worst in place or situation. And that dates from way thousands and thousands of years back, when we were afraid something was going to eat us. Nothing's going to eat us anymore. It's okay to interact with your neighbor. It's okay to interact with a stranger at the grocery store. It's okay to be kind. It's okay to be available. It's okay to be vulnerable. Just be a neighbor, and don't worry about this. Find the things that are common ground, things that we can get together and interact over. Yeah. Sit down and have a drink together. Having a drink
at Black Ring Spirits in Town and Country Mall.
You can, or it's a beautiful day out. Go have a nice tea together. You don't have to have a drink. Just go have a drink. But people have been doing that socially forever. Hell, having a drink that's worked into rituals and ceremonies of religions around the world. Go do that. Go have a drink together. Get to know your neighbor.
All right. Well, that is the final word. And for Tom and Mark, I am Marwan. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. We will see you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Tune in about 48 minutes for our conversation about housing. Today we go over the point in time count 2023 for Kitsap County. So look forward to seeing you then, and then study session for City Council at 5 p.m. All right, this is the